The title screen has subtle sound to it, so you won't be getting a soundtrack you can listen to. This is a game that doesn't rely too much on soundtrack and has you ease through at your own pace while being vigilant of your surroundings, just in case. You've got a cave-like area with moths flying around a sunshaft, and they'll be a main factor within the game, but we'll get to those later. When you go into the settings, you have a lot of things to tinker with, and I won't go through everything, but the controls takes you through the different keybinds for what button does what, on a controller at least, which is what I'll be using. You can also tinker with sensitivity. In the gameplay, you've got several options of vibrations being on or off, showing the HUD and tooltips, visibility of icon interactions, and whether to hold the keybind for specific in-game controls, like insight, holding your breath, and running. In text, you can choose your language of choice, whether to show subtitles or not, as well as everything that goes with them. What's even better is they show an example of what the text will look like at the bottom of the screen. The display is your run-of-the-mill options with the allowance of HDR. I didn't put HDR, so I don't know how well it does with this game. I know some games I play, the HDR just screws everything up as far as FPS and playability goes. There's also an advanced section to go into for the more nitty-gritty graphics settings, and there is where you can turn motion blur off if you don't like it. Audio is self-explanatory. Now, I don't know what I did when I started the game, but I didn't have any sound coming through the game, so I had to exit out of the scene and go back to the title screen. It's here that I realized the image changes from starting the game to restarting the game, and it's funny because I think it's the exact same area we were in before, the cave with the moths. And you won't have any insight to it yet on how it's the same area, but it's really cool that they've done this with the title screen when you do understand it. It looks like people that look like clay pressed together in the background, and there's something like a shrine with light coming off of it. I got the audio to work for me somehow by being in the starting scene, going into settings and audio, and then the sound was there. So I backed out of the game completely and booted it up again, and the sound worked. I don't know if it was a glitch or what, but I finally got it going after restarting the game completely. The loading screens actually feature a death's head moth at the bottom, but oddly enough, before you can start the game, there's a play button, so you'll need to interact again to start the scene. I'm not really sure why they went with a play button, thinking back on the entirety of the game that I can remember.
It all starts with a dead girl.
And that's one way to start a game, and the way it states the line, "It all begins with a dead girl," makes you think the girl we see is missing and presumed dead, or found to be dead, and that's what starts us off on our journey. She's clearly running from a person, and the person looks to be male with gloved hands and a gun that seems to be what ends her life. I do like that they added context to her death instead of simply showing us a dead body or something of the like.
Ever since I was little, I've had this dream. It's the end of summer. A girl is running through the woods. The moon, the scent of pines. And then the gunshot. It always felt so real. The blood on my cheek, the cold sweat running down my skin. I'd managed to convince myself it really happened. This scar of a memory. But part of me I could never fully understand. Well, that wasn't the only part. No wonder people used to think I was strange. If they only knew.
A couple things to digest here. First, when I first played this game and looked at her eyes, I thought this was going to be one of those tropes where we have different colored eyes and therefore we have special powers. That used to be a huge thing in writing. Different colored eyes, special powers. Different colored hair, special powers. Unique quirks, special powers. It became so annoying. But that's not the point of her eye color in this game. She just happens to have partial heterochromia, which you honestly don't see too often in video games. Second, she's talking to someone, and it's not us as the viewer. She made 2 cups of drinks, though she doesn't really push the second one across the table, and we don't get a proper view of someone being over there. At least, not sitting down. They could be standing against the wall for all we know, and really, we can only assume at this point that it might be a detective or some sort she's speaking with. As far as we are here at the beginning, it's someone who makes the most sense, or maybe at least someone in the law enforcement field. Maybe the beginning with the idea that the game starts with a dead girl was as emotionally triggering to some, but here's where things make it a bit more upsetting. Our father recently passed, and it's now our job to make sure he's dressed appropriately for his funeral, which I guess is what he did as a job. I know I could never be the one to deal with the dead, such as doing autopsies or anything like that, but I also don't think I'd be able to dress them. It would seem too personal for me, and to do it for someone you love and we're close to, I don't think most places would allow this, right? Or at least I'm thinking in the sense of hospitals. If a family member arrives, the working family member won't be able to operate or anything due to family ties and the emotions that would come with it. Perhaps mistakes could easily happen, or they'd end up overthinking something and cause a tragedy that they wouldn't be able to really come back from mentally. It makes sense in that case. In our search for the tie clip, we come across an appointment book. There's a lot of things on the agenda, but most importantly, there are dates featuring ultrasounds, biopsies, and neurologic visits, as well as November 5th being scheduled for surgery. That's the last thing we see, and it makes you wonder what the date today is. If this is why he passed away, he had something wrong with his brain, and the operation didn't go well. Honestly, sometimes I worry when my migraines get real bad. There wasn't anything found to be wrong in my case, but I know a coworker of mine started getting headaches and ended up with an inoperable brain tumor that only give her a year of life, which is scary as hell to know when your expiration date might be. When you walk around, you'll notice immediately that you can't really look around the room, and that's because this game has fixed camera angles. The camera can sway a little bit as you walk around, but once you reach a certain point, the angle changes time and time again. I'm not a huge fan of fixed camera angles. I can see why they're used in certain games, because they're allowing you to focus on a set environmental clip instead of giving you free range where you might get lost in the details. The reason I hate them is because if you're walking to the right, the camera angle may change so you're walking straight ahead, but the joystick is still turned to the right, which throws me off every single time. And when you try to correct it, your character ends up doing some kind of weird turnaround, trying to get situated to your sudden overcorrection. I hate that crap. I can't keep pressing right in order to go a different direction. My brain doesn't like it. We can enter our old room, and on one of the walls is a plethora of taxidermy butterflies. I looked it up because I know there's typically a significance when it comes to both butterflies and moths, but butterflies overall symbolize transformation, freedom, and rebirth. Obviously, every culture has a different viewpoint on what a butterfly means to them, and there are even different symbolisms for the colors of butterflies, but overall this is kind of what we're looking at. A collection of butterflies like this I can see what people like, but with other taxidermy animals, I'm not really sold on. It's definitely more for people who like a certain aesthetic, perhaps, to certain animals. Kind of like how people collect Funko Pops, except these aren't man-made exactly. We state that they used to bring us happiness, but not anymore, seeing as Jax passed away. I wonder if they offered her a sense of freedom, and now she sees them as insects behind glass walls. On a table is a photograph of a bunch of kids from an orphanage. We state that not all of them had our luck, signifying that we were adopted and not all of them were. And then we zoom in on one boy. We talk about spirits and that Matthew was the first she helped pass on. I don't know if that means he's the first, or if he was the first one at the orphanage, because we did state that we used to run from them. The first letter we pick up from our primary school days states that Jack was needed for a parent-teacher meeting. Apparently we told a kid a message from their deceased grandmother, and this is something that we often did that Jack wasn't too happy about us doing, but he seemed to always cover for us. I mean, I guess it was that or drop us back off at an orphanage. Since he didn't do the latter, it's assumed that he knew about our ability and was okay with it, even if it did get us into trouble at times. The next paper we see is an ICU admission card regarding us having second-degree burns at the age of 3. Now, you won't be able to read this sheet of paper as is when you pick it up because it's scribbled in a doctoral kind of script, so the game has implemented the option to read the text with a keybind that will bring the text up on the screen for you. This is done for anything with writing on it. When we enter Jack's room, we learn about our ability of insight. This is a kind of way to see things that are otherwise hidden from us, such as the tie clip that's underneath the clock on the table. Odd place to put it, if you ask me, and I doubt we would have ever found it if it weren't for our ability of insight. Looking at the wall, we get information that Jack was part of the Solidarity movement, which was a Polish anti-authoritarian social movement. I assume this is here to kind of ground us that we're in Poland, perhaps, or maybe that's where Jack is from. I do know that the Bloober team, the developers of this game, are from Poland. Another photograph in here confirms that Jack knew of our gift and instead of feeling off-put by it, told us we were special. I'm not sure if telling someone they're special will make them feel any better about having a unique gift like this. Maybe it depends on the person, but I think it'd make one feel more weird and addressed from other people who don't share the gift. On another wall is an image, and it's mentioned that Jack was religious and ran a funeral home where we'd help out. I'd ask if that's even allowed, so I'm not sure it would be, unless we were considered to be a part-time worker or something. I'm also going to guess all we did is help out in the finality of dressing a deceased person, rather than all the nitty-gritty stuff that should be left to the professionals. It makes me wonder what Jack did specifically in this profession. I think I'm getting autopsied bodies mixed up with a funeral home, because if the deceased is at the home, then the autopsy and tidying of the body should have already been done. So maybe it is just a matter of making them look proper in their attire so they can be placed on display in an open casket or something. In that case, maybe it's not so bad that we helped out. You can read a couple news articles, but the main thing to know is the date, which is November 5th, 1999. And Jack had surgery on this exact date, which means this is a result of his death. But if he's being dressed already, isn't that a little quick for getting an autopsy and being prepped for a funeral viewing? Shouldn't these things take longer than less than 24 hours? Another fact is that this is, in fact, Poland we're in. Now, I haven't stated it yet, but there is a cat in this game, and no, you can't pet it. In fact, the cat doesn't seem to like you all that much, since it does hiss at you in Jack's room. You can, however, feed it, so at least they're giving us something more than what the cat will give us. But it doesn't even seem like we know the cat's name anyway when it comes in the kitchen to eat. The connecting room is where we'll be developing a photo. It's a little funny that this is in the game because I started playing this after playing some of Martha is Dead, which is a game where developing photos is one of the main aspects. But in the medium, I think this is the only time where you're developing a photo. I think they put it in here because it's personal to us, since it's the last photograph of Jack that we took. The procedure for developing the photo is also a little easier in this game compared to Martha is Dead. There's a sign on the wall for instructions, which is to illuminate the photo and then dip it into 3 different solutions. Each one of these tasks is timed, so you want to count the seconds in your head. If you overexpose the photo, you'll have to pick up another sheet and try it again. If you dip the photo in the solutions for too long or too short a time, I think you can dip them again without any repercussions. I don't think you have to start from the beginning, which is very nice of them to do it that way. Once we have the picture Jack, that's that. I'm not even sure if it was a required task, just something you could do on the side to get a good look at what he looked like. In the bathroom, you can find the book 1984, which is an actual book set in dystopian future regarding a government that's absolute control over what everyone does. We state it's interesting when we pick it up, but maybe it's interesting because it's a rather depressing read and doesn't look to be bath time reading material. Now, this is a game where there's not going to be a whole lot of areas to explore. It's fairly linear, but when you are in an area, it will behoove you to look around. We don't see any around here, but there are collectibles. In fact, the game kind of allows you to look around this section before using the key for the funeral home, but maybe the biggest problem with this is the fact that there's nothing you can actually take from the environment, even though there are some things you can look at and read. It also makes you think there won't be anything to look for, but this is the beginning, so perhaps they figured you'd learn that it's not the case eventually. On Jack's desk in the funeral home, there's a funeral paper regarding the deceased Adam Novak. As of right now, I can't remember if his name comes up later, but Novak itself is familiar. Sometimes it's good to remember names that might look dismissible, but other times names are just there for you to see something relating to the storyline, like this being a record of a deceased person. Looking around the room, there are several glass cases showcasing a variety of vases for cremation purposes, I'm sure, and it's kind of cool being able to go through and look at the different ones. The deceased clearly wouldn't care which one they'd end up in, so I guess it's all about aesthetic from the person choosing it, or what matches the deceased personality or favorite color. I don't know. It's kind of like choosing a coffin, but I feel like a vase is a lot more personal to the life they might have lived. A coffin is going into the ground and not being put on display for the most part. A vase is more than likely going to be seen a lot more often. I don't know about you guys, but I never liked the idea of looking at someone's corpse, which is why closed caskets are a thing, but still, the whole prep work process creeps me out as well, especially after watching the mortuary assistants playthroughs. Going down into the prep room is the creepiest part of the game so far because of the environmental atmosphere, and this is where fixed camera angles excel. We don't have the opportunity to look around, which might separate yourself from the ominous sense of unease that something might happen, mainly because we're walking down the steps with the light coming in through a window down into the stairwell behind us. It gives everything a light blue hue, an otherwise dark stairwell. It made you think something was going to show up, but nothing does. When we pull Jack out of the cabinet, which is really weird to say, and there's probably a more appropriate term, but I don't know it, we're left with finding his tie, which is laying on a nearby chair. At this point, we learn we can sometimes combine items, such as a tie and clip. We've now learned two different things that actually don't really happen all that often in this game, and that's both insight as well as combining items. You would think you'd use insight to find collectibles and stuff to read the environment, but it's not used like that. It's very specific on when you can use it, I think. Same with combining items. You're not really going to get a lot of items that are actually needing to be combined, but it's teaching you it nonetheless. I understand the need to tutorialize something like this at the start, but I wish that when games did do something like this, it happened all throughout the gameplay and not spaced out, because it's just so easy for some people to forget, even with the keybinds at the bottom explaining the combine function. You just stop looking down there after a while.
Oh, can't you people read? The sign says closed.
Here's where the supernatural aspect of the game comes into play. The lights begin flickering after some thumping occurs, and if anyone has watched Supernatural, you know flickering lights is just almost never a good thing. So as we make our way to the steps and up them, there's a vague silhouette of someone at the top. We don't seem to see it because as we ascend it disappears, though in hindsight she is looking directly at it as she goes up for a second or two. There's a crash within Jack's office, and when we investigate, an urn lays shattered on the floor. Here's the best part of the game.
And then it happened, as it did so many times before, just when I thought my day couldn't get any worse.
Oh, where is that darn notebook? I'm gonna be late. I need to find that. Marianne? Oh, Marianne, are you crying, my child?
It's fine, Jack.
Now, you didn't happen to see my notebook, did you, darling? My memory's a bit fuzzy. So much for aging gracefully. Where is that?
Listen, probably get some rest. Forget the notebook.
Oh, no. I've got so much work, my dear.
It's okay,
I know,
Jack.
I can't just... What?
Let it go. It's not important.
You are crying. What's wrong, dear? Oh, why is it so cold in here? Where is that damn notebook?
It's okay, Jack. It's okay.
My sweet little Marianne. What would I ever do without you?
Jack, don't worry about it. It's time to get some rest.
Oh, Marianne.
Yeah?
Oh, I'm worried about the surgery. When I'm at the hospital, are you sure you're going to be all right?
Yes, Jack. It's gonna be fine.
You know, I promised myself once I would never let anything happen to you. Not while I'm around.
I'll be fine. I promise.
No risky stuff then. Huh? All right?
All right, Jack. Now, get some rest.
I need... Oh, yes. Be good, Marianne. I love you, my child. I've loved you since the moment you walked into my life. Remember that. Always.
We've kind of got one foot in reality and one foot in something like limbo, because it's where certain spirits are trapped that haven't moved on for one reason or another. So while we're still standing in the real world, we're also standing in the alternate world as well, which is vastly different, as are our hair color and outfits in both worlds. It's here where we have an emotional meeting with Jack for the last time. You can tell he loved us, and we're clearly upset having had to help Jack cross over since he was too focused on his notebook to just let it go until we calmed him down a bit. It does make you wonder about the notebook he was looking for, and I don't think we ever really know why he was so desperate to look for it in that moment. But the deceased always seem to wear masks in limbo. I won't pretend to know anything about the afterlife and what the masks might represent or why our outfit might change. I'll leave that for you all to decipher in your free time, though it does always intrigue me to hear everyone's take on it.
Most people would give anything to have that opportunity. To say all the things that were left unsaid. But it didn't make things any easier. I could help 1,000 souls cross over, but when it came to Jack, it still hurt like hell. I love you too, Daddy. I used to think everyone saw the world the way I did. Divided. Torn between two realities. But no. I was the only one. Or so I thought. We're closed. There's another funeral home across town. I can give you the number.
Marianne.
Who is this?
You don't know me, Marianne, but I know you.
Look, if this is a joke...
You need to listen to me, Marianne.
Okay, I'm hanging up.
I know what you are.
What? Who is this?
My name is Thomas. I need your help.
Listen, if that's all you've got, I'm...
No, there's more. I can give you the answers you've been looking for your whole life. But I need you to trust me.
Trust you? I don't even know you.
It all starts with a dead girl.
What did you say?
The Neva Resort. Find me there. Please. The light, it's almost gone. It's not dark yet, but it's getting there. You're the only one who can stop it. You're my only chance.
Hello? Hello? Shit.
Fascinating how that all kind of spun out of control for us. A random caller who knows more about us than we do about him, and him quoting the line that we stated in the beginning. Looking at that bit of knowledge, it does lend us to believe that we might be talking to the mystery man. This upcoming scene features actual clips of Poland, where this game takes place, I think, but again, I won't pretend to know anything of what's going on if there's a reason for the clips being shown. Hello everyone, my name is Kate, and thank you for getting to the end of this podcast preview for The Medium. These are podcast previews of a possible upcoming podcast for the full game. This is kind of, I don't know, maybe a priority thing that I allow people to vote on. The link is in the description. Basically, if you want to see the full game as a podcast episode, it might move up in the ranks. Some of them I do plan on doing full podcasts for, but they take a while, so I kind of want to get people's opinions on some of the games. And for the medium, I have about 7 hours worth of recorded time to go through for a podcast episode, so any further podcast episodes, shorts like this one, not the full one, are available to my Patreon supporters. But once I release the full podcast episode, it's going to be for everyone. So something to keep up with when I do them. Like I said, they do take a bit of time to do, and I have to write the transcripts so I can remember what to say, what to talk about. And then I play other games and try to review those to keep you guys kind of up to date. So yeah, this is for The Medium. Tell me what you think, your thoughts, and I will see you all next time.